Football lovers in the 254, football lovers from Africa, football lovers from all over the world. The cameras have been rolling all day, but right now it's time to flip the mic and listen from the press, because you know what? We've heard from the pitch, we've heard from the players, from the coaches, but right about now, let's listen from the members of the Fourth Estate. What do they have to say about tomorrow's clash? Joining me is the one and only Mark Kinyanjui.
Thank you for having me, Rix.
Thank you
it's always
for
a
being
pleasure.
here.
And you're doing a tremendous job, by
Hata
the way.
wewe jamani, hata unapiga shughuli safi sana. Mambo
Asante.
vipi? Welcome
Niko
to
salama
Sport Time
sana.
once again.
Asante sana. Of course, we are very excited for tomorrow. Of course, tomorrow and Tuesday,
Yes.
Gambia will be facing Gambia and then face Seychelles, both at Kasarani Stadium. Of course, right now there's a lot of euphoria because, you know, Kenyan football is on the rise based off what we saw at Chan. And right now it's about trying to finish as best as we can at the ongoing qualifiers. I know it's mathematically almost impossible, but it's never over until it's over, you know?
All right, we're just right from Chan.
Yeah.
Tumekuja the World Cup qualifiers.
Yes, exactly.
Kwanza vile ambavyo Chan imehapa, just how important did you think, ama do you think Chan was? Unafeel kwamba imeleta impact gani in our football industry?
I think Chan has actually, this is perhaps the best Chan that we've ever seen. I think Chan, the first edition, it happened 2009. And since then, we've seen it grow tremendously. We've seen it used as a platform to see players get a chance to showcase what they can do and earn better moves abroad. You know, we've seen the likes of Yves Bissouma benefit from this tournament, now at Spurs playing for Mali. Right now, we've seen Ryan Ogam become the first player to earn a move to Wolfsburg. Wolfsburg are a team that was actually trying to qualify for Conference League. We've seen them play in the Europa League. It's actually a big team without having to undergo trials like most other Kenyan footballers do. So you can see the impact that it has had on some of these players in terms of giving them, you know, exposure and giving them opportunities to basically launch their professional careers. We've also seen, you know, fans are now starting to come back to the stadium, you know. This time last year, ilikuwa doom and gloom because we were hosting our own home games. You know, we had the chance to come and host Ivory Coast, the champions of Africa, in Nairobi. Tulienda kuchezea wapi? Malawi, which was very unfortunate. But right now, I think now tunaona sasa progress imeanza kukua. And long may it continue because the aim is AFCON 2027 and also to make sure that we lay sustainable structures as it allow hata hao vijana wenye kwa grassroots where I also work wapate nafasi. Isikue after AFCON 2027, that is it. We need to make sure that we lay structures in place that will allow us to have sustainable success for years to come.
Right.
And this is a step in the right direction.
Right, amazing. Now, just before we dive into tomorrow's game, umezungumzia tu transfer ya Ogam, and I've really felt like it's important to talk about the transfers that has been happening in the Kenya Premier League. Tumeona kwamba kuna wachezaji, kuna timu ambayo imefanya holding ya transfer. It has been on a spree.
It must not be mentioned. Gor Mahia.
Yes. But what is your take on that? When unajua hawa wachezaji, Chan imewapatia exposure, but still they are signing kwa hizi timu za ligi yetu. Do you think that was hiyo ni move ambayo it was a quick decision they made? Ama what do you think? Ama wangengoja kidogo kwanza. What's your take?
I mean, if you look, Gor Mahia is the creme de la creme of all football clubs in the country. You know, they've had sustained success. They're the record league champions. Now, the reality of the matter is, unless you are a young player, because unajua huko, chances zako za kwenda abroad ni higher when you are a young player because the coaches view you as someone with great scope to improve. Someone like Ogam, he's turning 21. He's still 20, still young enough. But for someone like Mike Kiboage, a very experienced player, he's 27 right now. Hata kama atapata opportunity, you know, itakuwa very difficult for him at 27 to get an opportunity. Even if he's a good player, organizes the defense. Unfortunately, he's injury prone, but otherwise he has very good qualities.
What about Mansour?
So even for Mansour,
Mansour is the
it's
the
true.
Youngest, amongst the youngest players we have in the league. Yeah.
But you see, even Nairobi United themselves are on the rise. Already, hawajaicheza game yote Kenya Premier League. Now already unaona wanacheza Confederation Cup because of the support they received back in NSL. You know, they blew NSL by storm. Right now, they're in the league. They beat Gor Mahia in the final of the cup. Maybe you might say he should have had better opportunities to move abroad. But then again, in the context of the fact that you also want your league to grow, you also want your own league ipate following, kushinda apart following the national team. I think it's actually a good move for him, because if he goes there, performs, helps Nairobi United continues going against all odds, na maybe hata wafike group stages. Yes, I know it's almost impossible, but in football, like we saw with Kenya beating Morocco, it's not impossible. So for him, akienda hapo for like a season or even 6 months and he does well, already he gets a move to move abroad. I think he's had a lot of opportunities. I think there were some Egyptian sides that were actually looking at his services, you know. I also heard of stories to do with Sweden. You know, he's still young enough, but yeye wacha kwanza, pia yeye develop, grow into that position in midfield, because right now I think that's his long-term position now. So he still has all the time in the world, and I think within 1 year or two maybe atakuwa amepata opportunities kwenda abroad. But it's good to see that at least itafanya ligi profile yake improve kidogo.
All right, amazing. Now let's switch it up to the World Cup qualifiers. Harambee Stars are just turning right here.
Exactly.
Tomorrow is the big day. Kenya faces Gambia here at the Kasarani National Stadium. What do you think is going to be the turning point in tomorrow's game?
For me, the turning point tomorrow, that will depend on so many factors, because if you look at when the two sides faced each other in the first leg, you remember Gambia were actually leading 2-0, you know. They adopted a counter-attacking approach. Kenya were actually trying to dominate possession, and then we were 2 goals down, and then they decided, let's try and protect this lead. But in football, 2-0 is probably the most dangerous score line, because at that point, McCarthy decided, let me throw some of my impactors, the likes of Bajaber, whose life has changed forever because of that, you know. Before too long, ilikuwa 2-2, then they score again, and then inakuwa 3-3. So ukiangalia based off that game, of course, over 6 months, vitu mingi zimechange. McCarthy right now has a better understanding of his footballers compared to the beginning. So I think for me, the most important thing, the turning point for the game will be whoever actually manages to win that game within the first half ends up winning the game. Because we've seen McCarthy is more than capable of adopting a pragmatic approach when he takes the lead. You saw a Chan vile team ilikuwa ina restrict opposition kuwa force outside, because they were compact, they were preventing them from creating inroads inside, which will be very important, because if you look at Gambia have speedy wingers, you know, Yankuba Minte, you know, Baru, both players who punished us last time. So the most important thing is to make sure that try and score the first goal as quickly as possible, and try and make sure you're compact so that wasipate spaces. Because if we try and press higher up and try and impose ourselves, we risk exposing ourselves on the counter-attack. So for me, to answer your question, I think turning point will be whoever scores the first goal, most likely within the first 20 minutes. I think atakuwa na high chance of going on to win the game.
Oh, wow. All right. Amazing. Now, results ya kesho, how do you think is going to shape to change the group standings?
It's going to have a huge bearing, even though mathematically chances are very slim for either side to actually progress, because you saw Gabon already won yesterday. Right now they are a step closer. They are top of the group on 18 points. Ivory Coast are second on 16. So Ivory Coast, you know, they only need 2 points to also guarantee second place, because if you don't finish first, you have to try and finish second, and at least hizo slots mbili zitaenda intercontinental playoffs. So I don't think tomorrow's game will have any real bearing really mathematically, but like I told you, in football anything is possible. You know, Ivory Coast wanaweza kuwa wameanza na mamioto hivyo, and then last 4 games hawapati point yote. You know, it happens. It happens. But I don't think it's going to have any real bearing. If Kenya get the win, the better for them, because right now it's all about trying to build for AFCON 27, which is actually the main thing, given where we are right now, and trying to build a strong team for qualifiers. Because even if Kenya is actually hosting a tournament, we'll still have to participate in the qualifiers. That is standard protocol. So I think it won't have any real bearing, but it's all about...
But I think we should qualify.
For World Cup. For World Cup. Under this circumstance, okay, yes, of course, that is the hope. But, and like I said, me I'm a Kenyan. I love my country to death. You know, goosebumps inakuanga time. Goosebumps inakuanga time. Unasikia your anthem and this. You know, you experience the atmosphere at Kasarani. But at the same time, it's also good to be realistic. Yes, we can win all our games and possibly get all 18 points. But it also depends on how other teams will perform. You know, it's out of our hands. So as it stands, mathematically, it has no real bearing other than helping improve us in terms of FIFA rankings. Wacha tuiweke hivyo. FIFA rankings tuiweke hivyo.
Watu wakizungumza negativity na fry kwamba we've brought in some positivity.
Yeah, exactly.
Now amazing. I know you've seen both of the teams training. I really don't know if you can depict which team is sharper during these training sessions. Wajua tumepewa only first 15 minutes just to see. But can you depict which team looks sharper in the training session?
That is a very difficult question to answer because, you know, Gambia wamekuwa hapa for a while. You know, their coach and even some of his coaching staff, you know, ni watu wenye walikuwa hapa Gor Mahia. Already, we saw him meeting Nyama Choma last week. He was very early to the party hata kabla Olunga wakuje. Hapa Kamtoyoyo, hata kabla Olunga wenyewe na ndo wa Kenya wakuje. So it is very difficult to say who is sharper in training at the moment because, like I said, tumeona only 15 minutes. So we can't really make conclusions of 15 minutes of training.
Right.
But from what I see is that both teams will be trying to finish as high as possible. So sidhani Gambia wamekuja hapa nini ndege trip, wacha niite ndege trip. Wacha karibu niseme road trip. Wacha kuja road trip. They'll try and frustrate us as much as they can. And like you know McKinstry from his time at Gor Mahia, he's someone who is very good at studying the opposition and finding a way to nullify their strengths, which is why it won't be easy for Kenya. But I think both teams will be trying to get as much as they can. And from what I've seen from both camps, I think kila mtu is in positive spirits.
But talking about the familiarity Coach Jonathan McKinstry has, not just with the Kenyan team, of course with the Kenyan players. Ukiangalia Sili mtu kama Sylvester, Rooney, McKinstry ni mtu ambaye ametrain na vijana, you know, anajua points zao, even
Alpha
though so do you think this gives him an upper hand?
Not necessarily, because like he even said himself in the press conference, you know, the way he uses his players, see the same way McKinstry atatumia wachezaji wake. Exactly. Like you saw, someone like Omala was a star boy when he was here. And right now, maybe, of course, because of decisions off the pitch, zimemu-affect, hajakuwa kishine as much as he should. Unapata, unfortunately, maybe haja perform vile inafaa to expect na hata yuko kwa hii camp. So I don't think it's going to have a positive effect, any effect. I think it all stems down to how McCarthy will set up his team, how he will use the likes of Alpha Chris, because Alpha Chris pia yeye alikuwa anamtumia kama deep lying playmaker. Hapa tumeona akitumika kama deep lying, at times anachezeshwa kama number 10. So it all depends on how McCarthy uses them. So I don't think it's going to have any positive, any difference. Maybe anawajua trades zao and stuff, but at the end of the day hajui wote. Na sidhani ni wote watakuwa starting lineup.
Yes, exactly. Amaz, amazing. Tukimalizia manake wajua kila kinachokuwa na mwanzo lazima kiwe na mwisho. Tupatie your first, give me your first 11 to predict your first 11
for tomorrow.
For tomorrow against Gambia. Wajua last time wase wengi waliba a lot of people, Farouk aliumesha watu nje sana last time. So just give me your first 11.
Niangalie camera.
Of course.
Okay.
Camera.
So, of course, in goal, of course, Bano Mondi. I think from Chan, Ali prove he's the first choice goalkeeper for sure. Exactly. I mean, he's very complete. You know, he commands his area well, has good distribution, communication yake may improve. So, in goal, it's going to be him. I think at right back, atachezesha Ronnie Onyango, because I think atakama watu kama Lewis Bandi waliperform vizuri. He likes, you know, watu wana attack na wanasaidia wingers wao. So Rooney will play at right back. At left back, I think itakuwa Abud. I think he's going to have to play Abud because Marcelo Ayuko unfortunately is injured. So I think Abud is the one who's going to have to play. Siraj didn't make this one. At 4-5, I think atachezesha Sili na atachezesha Mike Kibwage. I think he'll maintain that partnership from Chan because watu kama kina Joseph Okumwa wako. si change yako, but pia anajaribu kuangalia understanding. So Alphonse, you know, Alphonse na Sili wakicheza pamoja normally kuna vile unapatanga both want to do the same thing. So when they try and do the same thing unapata like unapata wameanza ku make mistakes ndogo ndogo. Okay. You say it at Gor Mahia. That's why Kibwagi came in for his leadership capabilities, and I think he's the best we have at organizing. In midfield, of course, Alpha Chris Onyango, I think atamchezesha tu pamoja na na Manzur Suleiman. And I actually think Richard Odada will have to play some. I think he's going to play a midfield three of him, Manzur and Richard Odada. I think for the control, the fact that Manzur amejiprove sana ile Chan off the ball, he's a presence, he's very athletic. Then up front, hapo sasa ndo kuna, of course I think Olunga will still start hapo mbele. He's still our best striker. I mean, of course people are excited for Gam, he has a lot of potential, but let's give captain heshima yake bana. I think watu wana ninianga sana, but I think right now it's all about the coach.
Exactly. Let's move on.
And then at right back, I mean at left wing, I think Boniface Moshiri definitely starts because super threat because unapata if Gambia adopt a pragmatic approach, unataka mtu ata unlock, you know, he's very unpredictable kama Bachaber. Then on the right, I actually think on the right who mtu anaitwa I don't think Ben Stanley. I think atachezesha William Lenkupai. I actually think he will because unapata kama Rooney anakupe width kwa hiyo right, unapata of course kuna mtu mwenye anaweza make hizo runs na nani Lenkupai is someone who is very good at that, na unaona Ben is clearly a fan of him. So I think he's the other player that is going to be given a chance. So I think that will be the starting lineup game ya kesho. Ukiniuliza, I think that's likely how he'll set it
Formation?
up. Bado tu ni 4-2-3-1 because that's his main formation, unless tupate red card tena alafu uone ameanza kuchezesha 5.
Abud alisema tukipata red card ndo tunawin.
Maybe you never know, because unajua genuinely by the sea banter, I think it's also true because unapata when you're down to 10 men, lazima you have to get your guard up. Huwezi afford ku sleep, huwezi afford kuleta jokes hapo, and that's why you saw we did well. Lakini time ko 11 men unaanza ku get complaints, unasema hawa 90 minutes. So maybe he actually has a point.
I don't know, but what do you have to say? Kwenye comment section, let's interact. Na kama K, everything that has a beginning must have an ending. Mark,
yes,
it's been amazing to have you here.
Asante sana.
Sisi tunasepa right now. I'll see you tomorrow and on Tuesday, by the way. And you guys, please make sure you make your way to the Kasarani National Stadium.
Mjaze hiyo study ba. Mjaze hiyo study. The fact chana iliisha imanishi mskuje. Mkuje mshabikie timu yenu na tupate all points that we can get. You never know. Labda next year tunaweza enda USA ba.
Man.
Yeah. Asante sana.
From your mouth to God's ears. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
All right, my beautiful name is Rix, and this is a Sports Eye, your #1 sports channel in and outside 254. Kama K, do you know what? Make sure you follow us on all our social media pages. That is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Na hapa kwenye YouTube channel. Hakikisha kwamba una subscribe because this is your #1 sports channel in and outside 254. Nasepa, until next time, stay blessed.